Creative Mind and Spirit is actually the name of the very first book our founder wrote. In 1916, he wrote a book called Creative Mind. Later, he added on the two words "and Spirit." In a later edition of it, he added "and Spirit" to it. Early on in his work, in his study of these philosophies that have brought him to formulate the science of mind, the philosophy that we practice here in Centers for Spiritual Living. He studied lots of different authors, like Ralph Waldo Emerson was one of his favorites. He read many spiritual texts, the Bible, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, many of the ancient Hindu texts about spirituality. And he used all of this information to come up, to synthesize it and find what he called the golden threads of truth, those ideas that permeate any particular dogma, any particular religious point of view. They transcend all of that, but they show up in all different religious points of view. And so that's one of the things I love about Science of Mind, is that it's not limited to one particular book or one particular idea, but it finds those nuggets of truth that are throughout all of our different religions, that permeate every aspect of the universe and so forth. And so one of the things that he talked about was this idea of we have a creative mind. Back in that time, there were a lot of metaphysical teachers running around, and many of them used a particular symbol. You may see that symbol several places in our church here. You see them on the wall, you see it in our stained glass, you see the practitioners wearing their stoles with that on there. So we're going to talk a little bit about that teaching symbol today, but I want you to know that although it has become synonymous with Science of Mind, it's actually one of the authorized symbols that can be put on a tombstone at the Veterans Cemetery. I found that out, which was interesting. But it generally, when people see this, they think of Science of Mind, but it is a metaphysical teaching symbol, and we're going to talk quite a bit about that today. But before we get into that, I just want to kind of bring together the idea of mysticism with this creative process. When I speak of mysticism, I don't speak of some kind of, for lack of a better word, woo-woo state of being. To me, mysticism is a very practical application of the principles that I've learned. For me, mysticism is about having a deep and sacred connection with spirit. It's about knowing that it is an indwelling presence, and it's about seeing that spirit showing up in everyone around me and all of creation. And so for me, that's what mysticism is. So mysticism reminds us that all of life is a sacred creative process. It reminds us that the sacred is pouring itself into expression all of the time. It encourages us to step beyond what the appearance is, the surface level appearance, and tap into that infinite source of spirit that's within us all the time. And so as we begin to want to change conditions in our lives, as we want to have different experiences, we can actually tap in to that infinite source of all possibility that is within us and begin to change our experiences that we're having in life. So mysticism, again, reminds us that life is part of this sacred creative process. My life, your life, all life is part of this creative process. And it allows us to create lives that are filled with purpose, filled with joy, filled with beauty, filled with a divine connection, a connection to each other, a connection to spirit, a connection that transcends words and thoughts. Now, all of creation is a manifestation of this one. All of creation is a manifestation of that one living power. Our very first principle is we believe in God, the living Spirit Almighty, one indestructible, absolute, self-existent cause. That one manifests itself in, through, and as all creation, but is not absorbed by its creation. The manifest universe is the body of the living Spirit. That's our very first, our very primary principle that we believe in here, that there is only one, and that one is in everything. It shows up as everything. It experiences the world around us through us as a part of its creation. That's how it experiences life. I love this. All creation is a manifestation of the delight of God. You are the delight of God. Now, isn't that an uplifting feeling to have? To be the delight of something so magnificent. It is God seeing itself in form, God experiencing itself in its own actions, God knowing itself in us, through us, and as us. For the highest God and the innermost God is one God, never two. We're never separate from God. It is always in us. It is always moving through us. We are created so that God can experience the world around us, as uniquely as us. Why would God want to experience the world the same way through every single person? So it creates us uniquely. It creates us perfectly. It creates us with all of those things that we might call flaws. Because you know what? Sometimes it's nice to experience life in one of our flaw states. Sometimes it's nice to experience life in one of our most profound and perfect states. But sometimes those flaws can be kind of fun too. You know, every one of us has a few of them that have led us into interesting experiences in our lives. So this idea of mysticism teaches us that spirit is not something outside of ourselves. It is actually an indwelling presence. It is the infinite intelligence and love that permeates all existence. It is the source of all creation. So therefore, it is the very creative process itself. It is, this idea of mysticism emphasizes the creative mind, that we are part of it, that it is part of us, that we are not separate from it, that there is no separation between that and us. And so in this idea of creating it, Ernest Holmes, I don't think I have a quote on this one, but I have it here in my notes. Ernest Holmes says that the mind we discover within us is the mind that governs everything, the thing itself. The mind that we discover within us is the mind of the infinite, and nothing else exists outside of it. So let's take a look at this Science of Mind teaching symbol here. It looks kind of like a circle with two lines and a V in the middle of it. As I said, this is a metaphysical teaching symbol. It's been used throughout, at least the last 200 years. It's been around. In the back of our Science of Mind textbook, there's about 10 or 12 different examples of it. And so it's not just one stationary thing, but it has all different ways of it. But I want to spend a little time today going through that because you see the symbol, and I'd like for you to know exactly what that symbol means. We call this also the creative process. This symbol represents the creative process. In other words, how things come from this idea or from spirit and manifest themselves into forms. So this is things, this is actions, this is effects, this is conditions, not just limited to physical items. And as I said, we call it our teaching symbol here. So let's look at the first part of it, the circle. So the circle, all around it, represents the unity of life, oneness, wholeness, perfection. It reminds us that there are three aspects of spirit in the way that the circle is broken up into three sections. You may have heard this called the Trinity in other faiths. We believe there is a Trinity too. We just don't think it's Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, but more universal ideas of that. And so we call that first section spirit. Sometimes Ernest Holmes refers to this as mind, as he said in that quote that I just used. The mind of the universe is inside of each one of us. It's the same mind that's in us. And so sometimes it's called mind. Sometimes it's referred to as God. Sometimes he has hundreds of words for what he calls this main section. But it's that idea of the pure essence of the universal intelligence that is operating all the time. The middle section we call the soul. Sometimes you might see it referred to as the creative medium. You might see it referred to as mind itself, because it's the mind that is thinking. It's the place where things get germinated, where things get worked upon. And then we have the lower section there is the body or the effect. And so we're going to spend a little bit of time with those ideas, those different sections there. And so again, the circle represents the unity, oneness. The circle also represents infinity, because as it is a circle, it has no beginning or no end, and it's continuously moving onward. And so this also represents the idea that any thought of separation is an illusion. That because there is only the one, because there is this unity of all life, that whenever we think of separation, whenever we think we're apart from spirit, that is an illusion that is operating because of some hidden beliefs that we have going on within us. But this idea of the circle keeps us grounded in that idea of oneness. So that top section that we called spirit before is also sometimes called consciousness or the divine. And so this represents the source, where all things come from. This is the source that is pure, that is never tarnished by anything. It's never diminished in any way. It is always pure, whole, complete. We talk about words when we're describing this as God qualities, as the qualities of the infinite, the things that are absolute. And so things like love could be up in that one, because it's a quality that's absolute there, that there is only this one pure love, and nothing diminishes that. This is the realm of all of the divine ideas, where infinite possibilities of creation exist before they take form. This is where, when you have a thought, it starts, before it begins to be formed, it starts working in that upper level of the circle there. It starts with that idea of a thought, of a thing that might be a possibility or a way of being that would like to see happening in our lives. This is, in a mystical point of view, this is the absolute realm. This is where pure spirit exists, where nothing is ever tarnished or diminished there. It's a place of perfect unity, and it is a place of infinite creative energy. All things exist in possibility in this section. When we align ourselves in our spiritual practices like prayer and meditation and affirmations and visioning, then we have access to that divine realm. We have access to those pure thoughts that are up there, that are available to us, but we have to get quiet enough to hear them. This is where inspiration happens. If you've ever been sitting quietly and all of a sudden you feel like a divine thought just popped into your head, this is where it's coming from. This is that area in that creative process where those things get dropped into us in ways that we can't even explain, ways that we can't figure out how they happened. And so in this idea of mysticism here, we are not separate from this divine section of the creative process up here. We are always the divine expressing itself. This is at the high, pure level of the divine expressing itself right now. And so as we move through this process here, we'll see that we are actually channels through which the infinite intelligence makes itself known. And so, again, pure potentiality, the ultimate reality here. Infinite possibilities exist in this section before they take form. This is where thought is. And it's a place of perfect unity here. So the second section we often refer to as the creative medium. And so this is a part of the creative process that has no judgment, that is neutral, impartial. It just does what it does. We often think of the analogy of a seed, soil, and a plant in the creative process. So the seed would be that idea, that perfect idea. But the soil just does what the soil does. So the creative medium there, it doesn't matter whether we put an orange seed into it or a tomato seed into it. It's going to do the same thing that it does to all seeds. It doesn't care what it is. It just is that place where thoughts and ideas go to gestate. You might think of it as a cosmic womb, where the idea is allowed to grow and to nurture itself and to become a viable organism or a viable action in our lives. And so it's a place of working of spirit in a way that we don't even have to worry about it. It's kind of like not having to worry about breathing. There's that within us that takes care of our breath all of the time. We don't ever have to think about it. And it's going to have us breathing continuously. And so the creative medium is something like that. It just does what it does, and it doesn't ever judge it in any way at all. And so this is in mysticism, this is the bridge between the spiritual world, that top level of the science of mind symbol, and the manifest world, the bottom level of the symbol there. This is the bridge between the two. And this is that place where all of the action and the work takes place in it. Again, it's neutral, impersonal. I love this. Again, the formless is gestated before emerging as form. And so, again, cosmic womb there. Okay, and the last part, the body, the form, the effect. This is, there we go. This is, represents the manifest world. This represents all actions, all form, all experiences. They're all manifested in this bottom section. So we can describe it as body, form, effect, action, and so forth. It is where spirit's ideas take physical form, where spirit's ideas manifest themselves, where spirit's actions are happening right there. It's the visible effect of the creative process, the visible effect of it. And so this is where we experience the outcomes of those ideas and beliefs that we have seeded in that creative medium, in that soul. So we experience them in that, in the bottom level there as the effect of what we have planted. The thought was planted in that creative medium, and now we're experiencing the benefits of that. We're reaping what it is. This aligns with some of the Hindu philosophy. They have a concept called Maya, which is that the physical world is real, but it is also a reflection of a deeper, unseen truth. So yes, what we experience in this world is real and true, but it is also the product of unseen truths that are happening around us. This is why sometimes when we are trying to change a condition in our lives, we don't exactly get what we want, because there's some work that we have to do to look at what those unseen beliefs are, what those hidden beliefs are that are happening in our lives are. So for instance, if I say, let's say I want to manifest some abundance in my life, and I think, okay, I'll start with a good old affirmation. I have $1 million in the bank. And then there's something inside of me that says, yeah, right. I'm not going to be experiencing that $1 million in my bank, because I'm not taking a look at what those hidden beliefs are that are operating, that are changing my experience of that affirmation, of that thought. So I can think as high as I need to think, but then there's some things that I need to do in that creative medium to clear away some of those ideas that have maybe long operated in my life that I'm not even aware of. Things of lack and limitation, and ideas of disease and poverty, and things that are operating at a level that we don't even, are often not even aware of in our lives. And so it's always an opportunity for us to look at what our beliefs are. And so the other thing about the body, the effect, the form, is that we always have to remember that it's temporary. And so I've manifested a body here in my form here, but this body, because of the physical nature of it, is temporary. And so it is also subject to some of the laws that go along with that. And so I can do things to help improve the experience that I have in this body. And that is the work that I do in consciousness, the work that I do with my spiritual practices to allow that to shift and change. But there are still some real life limitations that happen. At some point, this body will cease to function. And that's just a thing that is part of being in this experience, in this world. And so remembering that all of that body and that effect is temporary, but what happened in those other two levels on the science of mind process is eternal and everlasting. And so spirit, we always, I'll show you here in a minute how that works, but we're always returning to spirit. So we have form for a while, but form is temporary. And then we go through a process that we return to spirit here. So the body effect is spirit's longing to experience itself. So this spirit has all of this infinite potentiality existing within it, and it wants to experience life. And so it experiences it through us. And again, it is the manifest world, this bottom level of the Science of Mind symbol here. And it is a reflection of deeper, unseen truths here. So there's another part of this that we don't often talk about this part, but I think it's really important here. And this is the involution and the evolution of spirit. Again, spirit is always looking to experience itself in form. And so it does that through the process of involution. Involution means going in, going from spirit, from an idea, into form. And then as it does this, the infinite, that idea, that perfect idea, becomes finite. Again, it has a limitation to it. The formless, those thoughts become reality here. They become form. And the unseen becomes visible for us. And so spirit generates an idea or an intention. And this idea involves, or goes through evolution, through the creative medium, the soul, into a shape or a form in the physical world. And so involution is spirit moving into form. And then we have evolution. And evolution is form returning to spirit. So evolution refers to the ascent of form back to spirit. So when my body, this physical manifestation here, reaches its end of its life, the essence of who I am will return back to spirit. It will evolve back into spirit. And so it is this process of which creation grows, transforms, and ultimately returns to the divine source. And so this is, in a mystical point of view, this is a journey of awakening. When we get to this idea that we are on this continuous cycle of involving, spirit becoming form, and then evolving, spirit return, or form returning back to spirit, and that this is a continuous process. You may notice the little curve on the one side of the V. That's to represent that it is a continuous process, that there's no end to it. And so again, it's a spiritual journey of returning to oneness. This idea of going from spirit to form and form back to spirit is a continuous process, and it is the evolution of our soul. In our own personal terms, it's a process of spiritual growth where we awaken to our divine nature, when we awaken to that idea that we are part of that infinite potentiality that exists in that higher level of the symbol there. So this is the basics of our Science of Mind teaching symbol here. And so when I talk about the creative process, the creative process is that process through which it happens, through which spirit is giving form to the unformed, where we take an idea and we have it up there and we take it through that creative process and it becomes a tangible thing or a tangible action that we can see. So if I wanted to manifest more love in my life, if I want to experience more love in my life, I first plant that seed in the top of the creative process. I sit in contemplation and meditation, and I say things like, I am experiencing more love on a daily basis in my life. And I begin to feel into that and see what that actually begins to do in my life. How does that feel inside of me? How, what reactions am I having to that? And I allow it to gestate within me, just like I do in the creative medium. And I think, okay, so what's hindering my experience of love in my life? Oh yeah, there's those beliefs that I'm not good enough, or that belief that love happens to some people and not others, or that belief that there's nobody out there for me, or that, whatever those hidden beliefs are, I can spend some time with that and think to myself, is that true? Is that true? Is that really what's happening in my life? Or is this some kind of old belief that I'm letting play out in my life? And then I watch what happens. And I look for signs of it. And so maybe love isn't showing up exactly the way I thought it would, but all of a sudden I have a larger circle of friends where I spend more time with them. Or I adopt a pet, and I get that unconditional love from a pet. It's interesting to watch how this works, but it's constantly moving, ebbing and flowing. I love this quote here. It says, "Creation is an inner process, a dance between spirit and our consciousness." It is an inner process. It is a dance. It is constantly ebbing and flowing and moving and shifting and becoming more of what it needs to become in our experience. As we clarify things within ourselves through our spiritual practices, we begin to refine what it is we want to experience there. This creative process is not something that happens out there. It happens within us, and oftentimes it happens without us taking any thought whatsoever. Oftentimes we wind up experiencing things because of ideas we're not even aware that we have. And so sometimes that can be a really good thing, and sometimes that can be a not so good thing. There are times when we move through life at the effect of the world around us. One of my people that I read a lot says that we're like a pendulum swinging in the wind, blowing whichever way the wind is going. And so sometimes we're not even aware of what's happening in our lives as we're moving through this. The creative process is constantly happening through us. And so this idea of mysticism, it invites us to create a deeper sense of unity with spirit, a deeper sense of what's really going on inside of me, what's really going on in my thoughts, what's really happening in my belief system, and what is it that I'm experiencing, and how is that related to what I was thinking. It also emphasizes the power of intuition, to where we can begin to experience things in that intuitive process, where those ideas just kind of come to us and we're not even really sure why they happen. In science, in quantum physics, they call this the quantum leap, where all of a sudden you have some kind of idea, then you have no idea how you got to that one. And it's one of those processes where we begin to do that deep listening, and when we hear it and when we feel it, we begin to believe it, and that's that intuition. It's like you have that gut feeling. It's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't go down that road. And so you listen. If you listen to that gut feeling, you might find out later on, yeah, there was an accident on that road. I shouldn't have gone there. Or you don't listen to the gut feeling, and then you wind up experiencing whatever it is that you could have avoided in the first place. But intuition is listening to that voice of spirit within us, and it offers insights and inspiration to us. But when we trust this inner knowing, when we really align with that, then we become a greater vehicle through which the creative process can bring about our highest and greatest good. And then there's this idea of manifesting through belief and feeling. And this goes back to what I was talking about looking at what our hidden beliefs are and really attaching to that, what's the feeling that's going on here? I can say over and over and over and over again, I have $1 million in the bank, but the feeling that I have in my gut is, you're full of it. You say, there's no way, that's never going to happen. Then I'm never going to be able to manifest anything like that, because the feelings are overriding the ideas. And so we have to begin to look at, what's my feeling tone behind this idea too? Do I believe it's even possible? Is it something that, I like to refer to this as my BS button getting pushed. And so if I say something like that and there's something inside of me that says, yeah, right, no way, Laura, that's my belief system button being pushed. So, we just begin to clarify what it is, the feeling behind it, what are my beliefs behind it, and the more clear we get on that, the more clear we can get in what it is we're bringing into that creative process. And so there's some practices that we can do. I've mentioned prayer and affirmation so far, but here's some of the practices that we can do to actually begin to have a greater experience of our creative potential, because it exists within us all the time, but how are we experiencing it? And so one of the biggest things is to be a little silent. Learn meditation. Take some of our classes. Listen to our probably 1,000 different meditation videos on our YouTube channel from our practitioners. They're just wonderful ways to get clear, to sit in the silence, to listen, to contemplate, to have a realization of something that wasn't available when my mind is chattering all the time. We have our affirmative prayer. After service, I'll invite you to go to the prayer room to visit our practitioners who are delighted to sit with you and give you an affirmative prayer for whatever condition you're experiencing right now. Last week, we talked about the practice of visioning and how visioning allows us to tap into that internal knowing, that creative source that's infinitely possible within us. The conscious communing, spending time with Spirit in all different ways. It's one of the things I love about our teaching here is we get to experience Spirit in so many different ways, through so many different practices, through all of the ones that I'm listing here and all of the other ones. We can walk the labyrinth that's on our floor here and experience Spirit that way. Consciously commune with the divine presence as we spend about 15, 20 minutes walking in silence. We have fabulous books available over here and different spiritual tools that will help us move through there. There's no power in the tools other than the awareness they bring to us. So one of my early on favorite tools that I started using, actually, was when I was reading, I was in the Roots of Science of Mind class reading Emma Curtis Hopkins, who was one of the people that Ernest based his work on. And she had this wonderful description of crystals and stones, and she based it on the 12 stones in the foundation of the New Temple of Jerusalem from the Bible. But those stones just intrigued me like crazy. And so I found lots of different ways that I could incorporate using stones and crystals in my spiritual practices. There's no power in the stone, but sometimes contemplating the stone, looking at it in meditation, we just did this last week in our meditation class that we're taking right now, looking at a stone, looking at an object, a spiritual object, will bring about insight because we've gotten ourselves quiet enough. We're communing with Spirit. We're actively engaged in seeking that divine inspiration, and it comes through in lots of different ways. One of the things that we wanted to feature today in our bookstore is the stone amethyst. Now, you may have noticed I'm wearing lovely purple today because today is Amethyst Day. Amethyst is a beautiful purple stone. I actually have a bracelet that we have back there also that taps into your highest intuition. As I said, there's no power in the stone itself other than the awareness you get when you gaze upon it, when the awareness that you get when you hold it in your hand, the awareness that you get when you wear it. All of that will trigger things within us to bring them up to the surface, to allow us to experience them in greater and greater ways. If you're at all interested in what you can use with amethyst, I've created a little handout that's over there on the bookstore table too. So you're welcome to take a look at that and see what that can open up inside of you. And the last spiritual practice that's on here is actually living in awe, actually being delighted with the day. If you are the delight of God, how does that impact your day? How do you go forth when you leave these doors if you actually believe that you are the delight of Spirit? The Spirit loved itself so much that it made you just the way that you are, perfect and unique, so that it could experience life through you. That's what we are here. We are the delight of God. And how wonderful it is to know that. And so to live mystically and to work with that creative process is to recognize that every thought, feeling, action contributes to the unfolding of creation. Every thought we have, every action we take, everything that we do is part of that creative process. And when we view life in that way, when we look at it from that point of view, even our most ordinary moments become sacred. Then we truly are living in awe every single moment. This is one of my favorite Ernest quotes of all time. It's actually a question. It's not even really. But anyway. He says, "We are chemists in the laboratory of the infinite. What shall we produce?" What is it you want to produce in your life? What is it you want to take through this creative process and allow it to be part of your experience in life? You know, if it's health, if it's wealth, if it's prosperity, if it's financial or relationships, if it's whatever it is that you want to have in your life, begin to take it into those spiritual practices. Look at it with curiosity, with wonder, with awe, and see what you can create out of that. So let's finish this with an affirmation today. We love affirmations here. So if you would say this with me. I am one with the creative mind of spirit. I trust the divine flow within me and allow Spirit's highest vision to manifest through my life. And so it is. All right, let's take this into prayer. I invite our spiritual practitioners to stand and surround us. These beloveds spend a minimum of 4 years in study, learning these principles and practices, and then apply them consistently throughout their lives. Just ask them. Their lives are fabulous. And so I invite you to just take in a breath. Allow your shoulders to drop. Relax into your chair. And open up to this high idea. So right here and right now, I know that there is only one power, one presence, one divine creative love intelligence that has brought forth everything into existence. I know that this one is the infinite intelligence. It is the isness and the allness and the fullness of all creation. It is pure love. It is infinite wisdom. It is perfect peace. And it is unlimited potentiality. And because I know there's only one, I know that I am one with it. That the manifest universe resides at the heart of my being. That I am the delight of God. And as I know this is true for me, I know this is true for every single person, for all of creation, for we are all an emanation of a love so powerful and so pure that it could do nothing but create more of itself and create it beautifully and uniquely and perfectly as each one. And so knowing this truth, I know that we are all a part of that wholeness, of that oneness, of that unity of all life. And I know that this creative process is continually moving through us into expression in our lives. I know that as we clear our way, our limiting beliefs, our doubts, our worries, and our fears, then we open up to a greater expression of what is possible in our lives. I'm so thankful to know that it works this way. I'm so thankful to see it happening right now. I'm so thankful to experience it in my life and in the life of this center. And so I release this word into that law, into that creative mind that knows no lack or limitation, that is always pouring itself forth as infinite expression. I let it go and I let it be. And together we say, and so it is.